Hello Pokemon trainers, welcome back to another Pokemon TCG Pocket video here on iStarly TV. Extradimensional Crisis is now here in Pokemon TCG Pocket, so you can now open packs and get some new cards from the set. So we're going to talk in this video about 3 decks to try with these brand new cards. I tried to think outside of the box for some of them. Some of them might be a little straightforward and a little predictable, but it is always fun to predict, what cards we think are going to be really good in the set, as well as try new things. So let's get right to it. So the first deck I want to talk about, I'm calling Buzz Arena. Kind of a cringe name, but I always combine the names of the Pokemon in the decks that I'm playing. This is a Buzzwole EX and Serena deck. So Serena was a card that I really liked in the previous set. She does 50 to 1, actually I guess it's 0 to 150 damage. You flip 3 coins, 50 damage for each heads for only 1 energy. And of course with Rare Candy, you can get Serena going pretty early in the game. And Grass, of course, has a lot of really strong supporters in the form of Erica. There's also Leaf Cape from the previous set. And Serena herself has Mallow. So really, I think there's a lot of ways to buff Serena and make her just really tanky. And then the goal here is to chip away at the enemy with Serena with the 50 to 150 damage a turn, and then set up Buzzwole on the bench in the meantime, because Buzzwole's attack does 120 damage for 3 energy. So that's a pretty good attack, and again, you can chip away with Serena and then set up Buzzwole in the meantime, like I said. And that's why I'm also playing 2 copies of Leaf in this deck, because both Buzzwole and Serena require 2 energy to retreat. So the ideal situation is maybe you have a Buzzwole that's ready to go, you do 120 damage, and then the next turn, since you can't use that attack again, you can retreat with Leaf, go into Serena, do some damage with Serena, and then maybe the following turn retreat back into Buzzwole. And that's a lot of damage when you add it up. Assuming Serena's going to do about 50 damage each time. Of course, there are times where she'll do 0. There are times where she'll do 150. But on average, she's going to be doing about 50 damage. 50 plus 120 is 170, which knocks out most things in the meta pretty nicely. So that's pretty strong. One downside to this deck, of course, is that you are very weak to fire decks. Like, you're extremely weak to fire decks. So if you're up against Charizard, you're probably going to lose unless they get very unlucky. But against like Oricorio decks, for example, you do have Serena to chip away at Oricorio, so you're not relying only on EXs. And in general, I think this is just like a nice, like lean deck. It doesn't really require that much setup. Doesn't require too many holes to jump through, or hoops to jump through. That sounds weird. Tyrannical holes, that's Guzzlord's attack name. So I thought this deck looked really cool, and I'm definitely going to try it out as soon as I open 2 copies of Buzzwole. As far as the items and supporters, I mean, nothing surprising. 2 Kate, 2 Mallow, 2 Rare Candy, 2 Pokeball, 2 Research, 2 Erica, and 2 Leaf. For the Mallow, you could go 1 copy of Mallow and then 1 copy of like one of the Ultra Beast support cards. There's like an item, there's a tool card, there's also a Lucamine, the supporter. So any one of those could be played in place of 1 Mallow. So you have like a supporter that benefits Serena, and then you have a supporter or a tool that benefits Buzzwole. So that could be kind of cool if you want to split it that way. But yeah, this deck looks fun, and I'm definitely going to try it out. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. All right, and our next deck here is Gladion. So Gladion is a new supporter. This is a deck that I think looks fun and potentially powerful, and I don't think too many people are going to be talking about. But anyway, yeah, this is Gladion. Gladion is a supporter that says put a random type Null or Silvally card into your hand. So he gets to search for type Null or Silvally. Type Null, of course, is a basic. Type Null is not very good. It does 20, it can do 40 for 1 energy, which is like okay for 80 HP, that's not too bad. But of course the big draw is Silvally. Silvally is a Pokemon with 2 energy to attack, and It has 110 HP, which is not too bad. Silvali's attack does 50 damage, but if you've used a supporter card that turn, it does an additional 50. So it can do 100 damage if you've used a supporter card. Obviously, the combo with this is to use Gladion on your turn. Ideally, you find a Silvally, you evolve it, and then you get to do 100 damage, so that's pretty cool. Another cute little combo is this plus Red or Giovanni. So, you know, if you have your Silvally ready to attack, you can use Red, for example, and then that's going to basically, you know, your starting damage is 50, but that's going to effectively boost your damage by 70. So you're going to do 50 because you used a supporter, and then 20 because of Giovanni, or sorry, Red. So that's going to be 120 damage, which again can be pretty powerful. And it only requires 2 energy. Like, doing 100 damage for just 2 energy, that's pretty solid. Now, one downside to this deck is Silvally only has 110 HP. So even if you're running Giant Cape, there's still a lot of things in the meta that are going to knock you out. Like, Giratina knocks you out in one hit. You know, Buzzwole knocks you out in one hit, unless you have Cape, I guess. So I'm not really... as you can see in this deck, I'm running a lot of supporters, because that's what you want to be doing with Silvally. But I'm also running, because you can't just run Silvally as your main source of damage, so of course that means I am running Guzzlord EX, or you can run Giratina EX in its place. It's kind of like, basically in the last slot, you can run like any strong, you know, basically EX Pokemon. Darkrai is an option. I thought about Darkrai, and Darkrai is probably not bad, but I just figured, like, with Darkrai, you're kind of setting up with Darkrai, and you're also kind of setting up with Silvally, so just maybe it's a lot of setup going on. I guess that's kind of the same thing with Guzzlord and Giratina as well. I don't know. Basically, between Guzzlord, Giratina, or Darkrai EX, you could use any of those for this deck. Because they're all strong and they're all self-sufficient pretty much. And Silvally is capable of doing a lot of damage, but it does need a bit of extra support. But yeah, I thought this deck looked fun, and I definitely want to try it out. I did actually open the 2-star Silvally, so I'm excited for that. Maybe, actually I think I opened another copy as well, so I might be able to build this deck, except I don't own Guzzlord yet, but I might just try it out, see how it does, because it looks fun. I don't know if it'll be any good, but I think it has some potential. As far as the, you know, supporters, again, pretty self-explanatory. A lot of supporters here because we are playing Silvally. Who cares about supporters? But we're also playing 2 copies of Ilima, which is another way that we can kind of like mitigate Silvally's low HP. Like, obviously there's some individual attacks that will knock out Silvally. Sorry if you can hear the Lillipup in the background. There are some individual attacks that can knock out Silvally, but there are also some cases where the opponent's going to try to chip away at Silvally, so there might be situations where you're able to Ilima, pick it up, and then just, you know, save yourself from getting or save the enemy from getting a point. So yeah, I thought this deck looked fun. Let me know if you have ideas for suggestions or improvements, notably what we could pair Silvally with. Maybe it's just a bad card, but I figured since they made a whole supporter based on it in the form of Gladion, it's got to be good, right? There's got to be something here. And finally, we have the third deck of my list of new decks, and this is another interesting one, another new one here that's pretty cool, and it's playing Claydol. So Claydol is a Pokemon that I think is actually really interesting. It has an anti-heal ability, so it prevents all healing, which includes healing from your own Pokemon. But I thought this was pretty good because it feels like most decks in the game right now play some form of healing, whether that's Potion or Lily with a lot of the rare candy decks, or Pokemon Center Lady, Irida, etc. There's a lot of healing going on, and I think the ability to prevent that can really help slow down a lot of the decks that take a long time to set up. Giratina Darkrai definitely plays a lot of healing as well, and sometimes you're like chipping away at the Giratina and then they just heal it right back up, so that can be extremely annoying. So it just felt like Claydol could kind of be an interesting anti-meta pick. It might be terrible, but the upside is that it has 100 HP, which is okay, and also it requires colorless energy to attack, so you can put it in literally any deck. Of course, the deck that I've chosen to put it in is with Darkrai and Guzzlord. You could pick one or the other. You could play 2 copies of one of these EXs and 1 copy of the other if you want. I just think they're both pretty solid, and they're both capable of kind of, you know, they set up, they can do massive amounts of damage, they can do really powerful things, and doing that while preventing the opponent from healing. Of course, you're also preventing yourself from healing, but slowing down the healing can be really beneficial, especially with Darkrai, because you're chipping away at their health. As for items, we have Pokeball, Research, we have Giant Cape. I'm playing 2 Giant Cape because, again, we cannot heal with this deck, but we can put Cape on our Pokemon, which can also extend their lives. I'm playing 1 copy of Helmet. You could also switch that. You could play 2 and 2. You could play 1 Cape, 2 Helmet. It's up to you, because Helmet is also really good with Claydol, because they're chipping away at your Pokemon and taking some chip damage with Rocky Helmet. And again, they cannot heal it off, so that can be really powerful. 1 copy of Leaf, because pretty much everything in this deck has 2 retreat. I guess Guzzlord does not, so that's something to keep in mind, but being able to retreat Claydol can be good. Being able to retreat Darkrai, you know, pretty good. 1 copy of Red just for extra damage, and then the 1/1 split on Sabrina and Cyrus. Now, this is the first time I actually don't have a complete deck. For the last slot, I wasn't exactly sure what to put. You can play Repel, you can play Giovanni, you know, anything like that. I mean, there's a lot of options for this deck, so it's pretty flexible. I just wanted to kind of give you the idea for the core of the deck if you're playing Claydol, and I do think, again, Darkrai pairs really, really well with Claydol. You could go ahead and say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna play Claydol and Baltoy and Darkrai and Giratina. You could just play the Darkrai Giratina deck plus Claydol. That's definitely possible too. I'm sure most people will say that's a worse version of the regular Darkrai Giratina deck. It probably is, but in the mirror match, you're gonna hopefully be able to chip away at them because of Claydol, right? Either way, I thought this looked really cool, and like I said, Claydol really stood out to me when I saw it in the spoiler. So those are my 3 decks for Extradimensional Crisis. I think they're all really cool looking. I'm excited to actually build all 3 of them. Let me know in the comments what you think. Like I said, this set didn't really add too much in the way of like new Pokemon, and it really didn't add that many new supporters either, but I think there's still a lot of interesting things going on with this set. I'm really excited to play, and of course I'll start doing some gameplay videos once I open more cards. I've opened a couple cards that I really want to build around, so yeah, I'm excited to go ahead and try those. So good luck with everyone, good luck opening your packs, and let me know what you think of everything. Let me know what deck you're going to be building day 1, and I hope you have a great day. Talk to you soon.